Welcome to the Gateway, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. I hope everyone is doing well out there. For those who follow me, you kind of noticed, my guest tonight, by the way, she's really great. It's the first day of fall. My neighbors have all pulled their spookies out and decorated their yards, and my guest tonight is going to share her paranormal horror novel, The Sensitive. But before I pull her into the show, I just wanted to share a little story with the listeners out there to get your thoughts. For those who know or follow me, you know this that I did. I went dark for almost a week. Um, I was stranded in Asheville, of all places, in the midst of all the chaos that continued to unfold in that city. And I wanted to share two very unusual stories that happened to me leading up to the storm, and kind of want to get your thoughts on it. The question is, do we humans have premonitions, and are we able to gain specific information and warnings from the spirit world to help guide us through tribulations such as tornadoes, or in my case, a hurricane? Let me know in the comments below, but I do have two stories for you. I had to go to Asheville early in the week to work. My job requires me to travel quite a bit, and I'm all over the country basically. My real job is public relations, and it takes me all over. So, Asheville, it's been on our schedule for months. Nobody really thought that this storm would happen the way it unfolded. The hotel that I stayed in, part of it did get blown out. We were all okay. Nobody got hurt or anything. But yeah, part of the exterior of the hotel and some windows got blown out. And so we all moved to the other side of the hotel. And then shortly after that, the power went out, the flooding started, and it was mass chaos throughout the entire city. We didn't have internet, no communications at all, no internet, no phone, nothing. It was dead silent, pitch black. It was very surreal. And it was like that until I was able to escape. A nice stranger actually gave me a ride into Charlotte. And from there, I was able to catch a plane to get out. Otherwise, I'd still be there if it wasn't for this stranger. But here's what happened. Before I was supposed to board, the night before I was supposed to board the flight into Asheville, I had this dream, and the dream was a tornado. I was in a tornado. I was counseling a couple for some reason in their house, and I put a mattress over, I don't know why I did this, but I put a mattress over my head, and in the dream, the spirit world was telling me, you're going to be okay. You just ride out the storm. This was before getting on a plane. So after I woke up from that dream, I couldn't sleep. I was up all night, and then I had to go to the airport at 4 a.m. It was one of those really early flights. And then I was in Asheville. I was waiting for a room, and the lobby didn't have a room available to me right away. Sometimes they do that, So I sat in the lobby and was reading. It's no big deal. And I thought that I saw from the corner of my eye, I was reading a book, somebody standing on the left of me next to the chair. And I assumed it was maybe one of the hotel staff coming to tell me my room was ready. And I look up, nobody was there. So these are the two things. I was seeing spirits already, and that premonition. It's just very surreal. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I've had many occurrences just like this over the years, but I wanted to see what you all thought. Please put your comments below. I would really hear what you guys have to say about that. So my guest tonight, Renee Richardson, is a paranormal horror author, just in time for Halloween, guys. She's going to share about her book, The Sensitive, and I'm very excited to have her on. So let me get her on here. Renee, welcome to the show.
Hi. Nice to be here. I'm excited.
I'm really honored to have you on the show. And I just have to say, just looking at this book, it looks like a really beautiful piece. Maybe too pretty for a horror novel.
Well, yeah, a lot of the photos I took, well, in the book are ones that I took, and the cover is a photo I took. So I wanted to capture the love I have for the setting of the novel in Rhode Island, and just make it a very personal piece for my first. So I'm glad that you think it's pretty. I hope
It's
that it's
very
not
beautiful.
too pretty for horror, but thank you.
You know, some things are just too pretty for like a horror movie.
Yeah.
This book has all of those qualities. So let's start with you telling us about yourself. Were you
Sure.
always into the paranormal?
Always, since as far back as I can remember. I actually, one of my earliest memories with regard to the paranormal is sitting down with my dad every week and watching Ghost Hunters. I think this started in 2004, 2005. So I was like 8 or 9.
Oh, wow. So you're
But
so
even
young.
I know. All my coworkers call me the baby or one of the babies, but yeah, it's always been a huge interest of mine. I spent my early childhood in Rhode Island, and as you probably know, very old everywhere.
Mhm.
So a lot of the history and my, a couple of my family members had stories that they would share with me. So it's only gotten worse over the years for me. I've only become more obsessed. So yeah, this is my element, like I said.
You're a ghost hunter too, right?
Yeah. I in my free time, I dabble. I'm part of the paranormal crew for the Preston Castle in Ione, California. So NorCal, but it's an older boys reform school that has just so much history to it, and the foundation is trying to restore as much of it as we can. And part of that is doing our paranormal tours. So it's a fantastic location. If you haven't been, I recommend you go as soon as possible. It has so much character. But yeah, that's like my home base. But I do, when I can, I like to go to as many haunted places as I can, even if it's daytime. But with a 3-year-old, it's kind of hard. But in my heart, I'm always ghost hunting.
Preston Castle, I did go there. I didn't get to go inside, unfortunately, because it was closed for, I think they were doing something, remodeling or something. I don't know what it was. But I went outside and was just kind of looking at it from the grassy hill side that they have there. You know how there's like that sloping hill that you can just
Oh
see it
yeah, it
overlooking that.
looming
Then
over
it
the top.
does. The feeling from that place you get is like a sadness.
It's very sad. But the more you get to know it kind of just becomes its own character, there's just like us, we have a lot of sadness, and there's also playfulness there. And a lot of the boys that were there, and some that may have passed were as young as 8. So there is that. It brings its own livelihood to the place. But yeah, there's the dark and of course the light. You can't have one without the other. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely from afar it just seems heavy. But
Yeah, it
yeah.
does. I remember there's um like a little area, I guess, where the workers used to live. There's
Mhm.
a bunch of little houses there that are all unoccupied now, vacant.
Yeah. We use one of them, I think, for storage. The Colonial, which was, I believe, the superintendent's home. But
Mhm.
yeah, the castle wasn't just the castle itself. It was a whole campus of buildings. And the boys would live in some of those buildings. Administration would be in some. But the actual castle, for most of its time, was administration and staff. But yeah, it was a whole thing. I had no idea that it had so many buildings attached to it. And yeah, but I
Yeah.
would love to go into those sometime. It seems like it would be really active, actually.
It certainly feels that way. I walked kind of around that area for a little bit and was picking up on a lot of different things. And also, there's a building way in the back that used to, I assume it used to be like a workshop or something. That seemed like it was pretty active. I don't know
I
what
mean,
it was.
yeah, it might be this. maybe the stables you're talking about. I'm not sure. There's so many that, and I don't remember what all of them were. But yeah, they all seem like there's something in there that's waiting to have the opportunity to say hi. And I don't know for sure. I learn something new every time I'm there. But yeah, I would love to dive into those surrounding buildings.
Have you been able to contact like a specific spirit over and over since you've been there?
No, I don't think so. We there are a lot of names that we hear, and of course there were so many boys over the century or so that it was open, and so many staff members and a huge population of just the public passed away there because it served as the local hospital for some time. So, I mean, I'm sure that there are some frequent flyers and, people
Mm-hmm.
that call that place home, of course, but not yet. There are some names that have popped up a couple times, but I'm not sure if it was them or just in reference to. But there's so many, I think, that come in and out that it can be hard to hold a conversation with one for too
Right.
long. Hmm.
Well, the little town that's near there, Ion,
Hmm.
I think that's how you pronounce it. I stayed at the hotel there, the one that has the balcony that kind of
Yeah.
overlooks that Main Street.
Hmm.
That whole area has a lot of activity as well.
Yeah, I haven't gone and explored that little strip too much, but from what I hear, and I have friends that live there, and they of course volunteer too. That the whole town is kind of its own vibe. I have no idea. I've driven by the hotel several times. I want to stay there at some point because it seems like it would, of course, come with something. But yeah, the little town is very intriguing. A lot of people look at it and say, "Oh, that's just Ione, whatever." But there's so much there, and in that whole county,
Hmm.
Jackson nearby, we have.
Yes, I was going to say that I stayed at the Jackson Hotel as well, and that was very active.
Yeah, that place I would love to stay at. The Kennedy mines are very active, and I haven't been able to go there quite yet, but I'm hoping sometime soon. So yeah,
Hmm.
that whole area. If you've never been to that area, you need to. I'm talking to you. That it's the little gems here in California that you've never heard of that sometimes have the most personality. But yeah,
It's true, and it seems like you can drive all the way to San Francisco up that road and hit town after town after town, all those little
yeah,
mining district towns.
yeah. And there's I think the Chinese town of Locke that is along the river, and Walnut Grove, or is it Walnut Creek? We have both. I get them confused. I think it's Walnut Grove, but just on the way, yeah, to the bay. There's one thing after another. Benicia is really cool, and they have a lot of really beautiful Victorians, and yeah, it really is one thing after another. When we moved out here, I was like, oh man, well, there's not going to be anything cool here, it's too new. It's like Gold Rush, blah. But the whole area is pretty cool. I'm lucky that I'm, within like an hour or two of some really major places. So that's cool.
Oh, you know what I'm starting to learn? That everybody seems to think that just because it's old is haunted, and that's not always the case. There's a lot of newer structures too that are haunted. It could be from,
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe land attachments,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
something happened there at that new house. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
in it,
oh, go
some
ahead.
cases, these little mining towns are actually more haunted than stuff in the back east.
Yeah. There just so much went on, and, Wild West is pretty wild. The gold rush era, there, not whole lot of rules. So yeah, it's definitely underestimated, and there, it's so funny that they're both so active, the East Coast and the West Coast, but it's such a different feel to it. And I love highlighting both of that, it's
Yeah.
special. It's something special when you're in that kind of environment, and you can feel the differences because of the history. It's cool. But there's also, here in Sacramento, there's a Burger King that's supposed to be haunted. So yeah, you're right. It's the newer things too.
In Vegas, we have there's a guy that I had on recently named Darren Evans, and he told me that there's a place in Vegas here, a little gas station that they call the Murder Mart. Oh
no.
I think it's over by the art district somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but it is a thing. It has its own like Instagram account and everything. It's called the Murder Mart. And it's where all this weird activity has happened. It's like Darren's theory is that this location, for whatever reason, draws a bunch of negative energy into it. And so there's like been murders there. There's been, I guess that's why they call it Murder Mart.
Right.
All kinds of like just weird stuff happens there.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a rabbit hole I would love to go down. Yeah, have you been there?
No, I won't go over there. That's just not something.
It's not
any kind of like multiple murders and serial killers. That's not my ball game.
Yeah, I get that for sure. Yeah, there's a house here in the area, Sacramento, in Midtown that I don't know. Are you familiar with Dorothea Puente?
No.
Oh man, and I think it was the 80s. She was this old lady, I think in her 70s, 60s or 70s, and she was killing a bunch of her tenants and burying them in her yard, and people drive by and it's just a normal house, and I'm like, yikes, and there's people that live there now, and they're just, it's not some tourist destination, but
I can't imagine living in a house where stuff like that has happened.
Where that much happened, yeah.
Yeah, that's a little too much for me. I know I've been over to Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum a couple of times, and he's got that whole section dedicated to the murderers. Like, there's Charles Manson stuff in there. Yeah. There's Ed Gein's cauldron is in there. I just won't even go through that part of the museum.
Yeah. Doesn't he have some of John Wayne Gacy's drawings? And I'm sure he has.
I think he does. I remember seeing something to that effect up there too.
That's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not my thing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, going back across the country to Newport, Rhode Island, the setting of your book. So tell me, what is the setting of this book? Tell me about Newport, and where did you get this idea to write this book?
Oh, let me tell you about Newport. So Newport in Rhode Island, of course, is actually a pretty touristy town and very rich in its history. There's a whole street called Bellevue and Ocean Drive where they're just mansion after mansion after mansion. But then there's also the more quaint downtown streets with the cobblestone, and there's a centuries-old tavern that I mentioned in the book called the White Horse Tavern, and that is, I think, one of the oldest in the country. So it's a whole. I don't even know how to describe it. It's beautiful. And I have such love for it. I'm not just obsessed with this random town. My grandparents lived there for a very long time. My dad he ended up growing up there, spending his high school years there. And so I lived there and it wasn't a crazy long time, but I was very young. So it made a huge impression on me. And even when we moved back here, I think when I was probably 7 or so, we would still go back during the summer, and it's always felt like home. And one summer when we were visiting, we were just driving and an idea just popped into my head. I think it was raining outside and we were driving just through trees. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I just kind of saw a ghost right there on the side of the road? And then I don't know how it snowballed, but it did. And now it's almost 400 pages long of an idea. But I think I came up with it when I was 9. And it's just kind of gone from there. And really what kind of pushed me forward all the time was my love for Newport and those childhood memories that are so important. So
Do
it's
you
beautiful.
tie in kind of like the haunted history into this book?
A little bit, yeah. There are little references here and there, and one of them is the White Horse Tavern. And of course, I haven't dug too deep into the history of the location itself, but I've been there and I've felt it, and I know some of the reports from that location. So I kind of brought that into the book too, just to remind people that, you know, people from every generation, every era, every century were people, and we lived and we dealt with the same things everyone else deals with, and then we pass on, and who knows what's after that, but we're people. And that's kind of one of the main themes of my book, is making the paranormal not so scary. Like, it is scary, of course, because we don't know everything.
Mm,
We don't know a lot, but just making the scary seem more human.
right.
Yeah.
I think that's, we talk about this all the time on this show. And just even before bringing you on, I was kind of asking for people's comments about,
Hmm.
I saw a ghost right beside me in the lobby of this hotel right before
Yeah.
this storm. I don't always believe that ghosts, I think 9 out of 10 times, actually, they're not a scary thing, you know?
Yeah.
And so often I think we're missing the messages from spirit because we're too busy running away or investigating, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. We
So,
ask for it and then run away. Yeah.
yeah.
The
You know?
experiences I've had, and I'm sure a lot of your experiences have just been, it might be a little unsettling, but it's also more comforting, I think, than it is scary after the fact. Um, and I think a lot of spirits are just kind of around. I don't think their main goal is to possess you and, like Zach Bagans, something's always a demon, but
Yeah.
I, yeah, I think that's what pushes a lot of people away from wanting to learn about what we don't know a lot about. And I think it's important to make that connection. And it's helped me a lot somehow. I don't know how, but ghosts have helped my anxiety. I don't know why. I'm always anxious about what's going to kill me, what's going to, mortify me. But it's good, I think, to make that connection to what you don't know, because it helps remind you what matters at the end of the day. So, yeah,
Right.
it's not all demons and serial killers and
I think,
crap.
there's a fine line between entertainment world and, actual paranormal investigators who are really serious about
Mhm.
investigating. Because I think such a large part that we miss out on is that a lot of the paranormal is about spiritual healing, whether you like it or not. That's a
Mhm.
big part of it. It's
Yeah.
making you look inward to what's next. We all have all this evidence now about the paranormal. It's in photos, we have EVPs, we have all of this evidence. So now we should be asking, what's next?
Mhm.
Where do we go from here? How do we grow from this?
Right.
Um, and I think it's really important as far as like, the Zach Bagans and all the TV world. In a sense, if it wasn't, everything was demonic and exciting and scary, people wouldn't watch it.
Yeah.
You want to watch a bunch of people just sitting around a room, because that's what
And
happens when
talking
you ghost
to
hunt, right?
themselves. Yeah. Which is what it is.
Yeah,
85%
exactly.
of the time. Yeah. And I get
That's just my
that.
theories.
Yeah.
Um,
It's got to be a story, but yeah, a lot of the time it's super mundane. And
yeah,
yeah, so I get it. It's not entertaining. But
but I think too, it's like once you experience the spirit world, I feel like it's there. The ghost hunting and all that, the TV shows, it kind of wakes you up to, hey, look over here. This is really happening. This is real.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It has some real elements to it, even though it is Hollywood. There's still
Yeah.
real elements to that.
Yeah.
But it also forces you to, after being entertained, to go, huh, how is this playing out in my own life?
Yeah. And why
You
was
know,
this entertaining to me in the first place?
right, right.
Yeah.
So for you, I'm assuming that you've had paranormal experiences.
Yes. I've got a handful. It's not like a super common occurrence as much as I would hope, but yeah, here and there, it's
So what
sprinkled.
happened?
Um, one that sticks with me was actually in, like we were talking about, it's a newer house where I used to live. I think I was maybe 14-ish, and I was sitting up in my bed, and it was evening, and it was just a normal night, and I'm looking out of my bedroom door, and I could see the wall between my brother's room and the bathroom, and I was upstairs. And I thought my little brother was just joking with me. I thought he was, pulling a prank like a goofball. And I saw the shadow of what I thought was him just kind of standing. And the shadow was, I'm terrible at explaining things, like situationally, but there was a shadow on the wall between the two rooms, and it was just kind of going back and forth. And I'm like, Dylan, that's my brother. And I was like goofing on him because I was like, dude, I know that's you. You're, like the classics, like in the scary movies, they're like, I know that's not, it's not a ghost, it's you. But then I get up because I'm like, dude, give it up. And I get up and I walk out and I look over the railing, and everyone was downstairs watching TV. And it took me aback. Like it took me a second, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna walk that off. So that's one major. And then when I was a kid, I had like a bunk bed, but there was no bottom bunk, it was just the top. And I remember opening my eyes one night and needing water or something in the middle of the night, and there was this face of an older, I think maybe Native American woman, just staring at me maybe a foot away from my face. And I just screamed, and like I shut my eyes, and I look back and I'm like, was that anything really? But you can't really question it too much because, it happened and you're not going to know if it was something or not. But that stuck with me. And I'm sorry if I'm talking too much.
No, not at all.
There's a one more recent one that was pretty cool. And it was actually at Preston Castle. And we were doing a small investigation in the infirmary. And we were getting activity on the mag light and our cat balls. And do you know what all those gadgets are? Yeah,
I do, but
Okay.
some of our guests might not know what that is.
Okay, so a cat ball is what it sounds like. It's a ball that cats like to play with, and when it moves, it lights up pretty colors. And we use those a lot in our investigating because they're cheap, they're simple, and I think they're pretty reliable because when I'm banging on a mattress and it's not lighting up, and then I start getting responses perfectly timed to questions, it's pretty cool. So we were getting activity on our flashlights. It was going off and on command, and it was actually pretty surprising because I haven't had that much activity happen in that area. But I went with it and I'm asking questions, and I made, I think, like an hour-long video on my phone, and I was watching it with my husband the next morning, and I ask a question. I think it's, are you a man, at some point in the video. And loud is, super loud and echoey. There's like a, that was definitely not there because the only people that were there were pretty timid guests and my fellow investigators who they don't play around with that. I mean, we goof off, but not like that. So I like froze, and my husband asked what that was. I was like, I don't know. So we went back, and I was super shocked to catch something like that. But I play it back all the time, and I show my coworkers because they know I'm a nerd about it. And so that's something really cool. I'll have to show you sometime because I still don't know what it was. No idea. But
What was your initial reaction to that? Like, from your standpoint, you've been investigating for a while now. You've been around the paranormal for years. What's your theory on that? Do you think it's just a spirit on the other side who is disgruntled? Do you think it's a just energy embedded in bedrock or something?
You know, I think about it a lot, obviously, and I have kind of an idea, at least about that situation. I think that was probably residual, and that means kind of just like a tape recorder of energy just playing itself back. And I don't know how that happens. I don't know if it is tied to land or just the location or what. But given where we were, the infirmary, and how many people were probably in excruciating pain and illness, I think that's what that probably was. I don't think we were being yelled at or, scared off, but there were minors too. So I don't know. I think every situation's different. And I think that locations can have intelligent activity and residual. And that makes it even cooler, because then you got to wonder, well, why is this spirit this way and this one's not? And is that
Mm-hmm.
actually a person or just energy? And then why is the energy here? But like you said, when you went to the Zach Bagans Museum, you have feelings, and it's items, but
Mm-hmm.
those items, they carry a lot. you
Yeah,
know
they do. The place is truly haunted. The Zach Bagans Museum
hmm
is haunted,
yeah,
whether people want
there's
to believe it or not. I mean, it is what it is. I've had experiences there multiple times.
yeah, it's when you have that much in one location. I mean, you could just go to a yard sale and probably pick something up, but yeah, I have no idea. And I think that's part of the excitement about it is, we can research and we can learn and make our theory, have theories, and a lot of it can make sense. But at the end of the day, we're never going to know all of it. And so why not just do what you can and just think about it? It doesn't hurt to be wrong. It doesn't hurt, you know? It,
Right.
I
So
don't know if
this
that's
book,
the question. I know I kind of,
we're jumping down the rabbit holes here.
yeah.
Um, so you said you got the idea for writing this book when you were 9 years old.
Yep.
Are you yourself a sensitive?
Yeah. Every time people ask me that, I don't want to say, yes, I'm psychic. I have all these things going on, and I can feel what you're feeling. And I know that so-and-so's with you. It's not like that. But on both sides of my family, multiple family members have had experiences over the years. And I have an aunt that did some work with the police to try to help solve some crimes. And I don't know too much about it, but I know that there's a lot of stories that have been kind of passed down to me. And as I get older, I kind of realize, oh, I think some of the things that happened as a kid weren't just imagination. Um, and I'll get uh, feelings about things, and then it's hard to explain, because it's not like I see this person in the corner, or I'm seeing what's happened to you or who you've lost, but it's just odd coincidences sometimes. Like I'll have a thought about, it's funny, I've never gotten a traffic ticket. And then later that day, my husband was like, you're not going to believe it. I'm so sorry. I was pulled over for driving in the carpool lane and I got a cite. And I'm like, that's interesting, because I was obsessing my whole drive to work about traffic tickets and how we've never gotten one. So little things like that, um, in dreams, or it's just things that I'll think about or thoughts I'll have, and then something kind of directly relating to it pops up. So I don't know. I think I can kind of feel locations too pretty heavily, and I'm very emotional, so I don't know if that's just it, but or if I'm picking up on things. But I try not to force it. I try not to think too much about it, because I don't want to psych myself out and then
Right.
prevent things from coming in and being able to communicate with me if they can. So yeah,
Can you
maybe.
talk just a little bit about And I'm going to pull this up here real quick.
Yeah.
Here's the book. Look how pretty this is.
Thank you.
You took the photos, right?
I took the photo. All of the photos here I took when we went for our honeymoon, actually, to Newport, and that's just a tree in Brenton Point Park that I've always really liked, and it matched kind of the description of a very important tree in the book. So I decided, this is what I'm going to use to visualize what I'm trying to get across. So yeah.
Without giving too much away, can you tell us a little bit about the book and what it's about? Is this a historical fiction? Are there elements of truth in it?
A little bit. I kind of think of it as like a fictionalized autobiography too. I'm not a character at all. Emma Riley, the protagonist, is her own person, her own character. But a lot of it is kind of me reflecting on issues I deal with, like the anxiety, like feeling out of place, or just themes like that. And there are the mentions of like the White Horse Tavern, and the house that it takes place in, for the most part, is based on my grandparents' old house. None of what happens or unfolds is based in reality or in history, but very loosely. The locations are all, for the most part, real. Like not all of them are haunted, but there are some fictional locations. But I'm not sure if I would consider it historical fiction, but elements, if that makes sense. I don't.
Mhm.
Every time someone asks about this book, I sometimes blank. I'm like, what is this about? I forget.
It's really hard. I do this too. Somebody asked me just recently. I was a guest for another show, and it's hard to talk about your own work.
It is, right? Because it's just not natural. I don't like talking about myself. I mean, like
Yeah, I
that.
have that same problem.
Yeah, trying to feel like I feel like I'm trying to sell it, and I don't like that. But it's also very important to me, but also very emotional. So I don't know how to put it into words. But that's my grandparents' old house, and there are a lot of really great memories there. But also, I think it was pretty haunted, and everyone thinks it was haunted. Not like Amityville or anything like that, but you would see and feel things. But it's a beautiful house. It's an old house, and I thought it would be perfect to set the story in, because I knew it, and I wanted everyone else to know it so that they would know the characters more. So
It is a neat house.
yeah, thank you. Oh, it's not mine, but that's the creamery. These are pictures that I featured in the special edition that released with the book, and it's not available anymore, but I still love showing these photos. That's
Yeah,
the new.
they're beautiful.
Thank you. That's Trinity Church. That's another look. I felt like I was forgetting a location, but Trinity Church is an extremely old church in the middle of the downtown area, and it has a very old cemetery around it. So that's mentioned in the book. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And then those are just pumpkins I threw in because Happy October.
Yeah,
But
we have pumpkins right now. I have a pumpkin candle burning. I'm drinking pumpkin coffee.
Yeah, call me basic, but the closer I feel to Newport, there it is.
Has any of these locations seen any of the Revolutionary War?
Oh, I'm sure.
History?
I know I want to say almost for certain, at least the White Horse Tavern has, because I think they housed some soldiers. I could be wrong, but yeah, and I think Trinity too. Mm-hmm.
Taverns. Was it a tavern back in the day?
It was, yeah. And then
That's
I think it was an inn for a little bit, and I'm not remembering too much because it's been a while since I really looked into it. But yeah, I think it's been a tavern for most of its life.
So it probably did see some Revolutionary War, because I know they were all meeting at different taverns and things before, to plan attacking the
Yeah.
British.
Yeah, I'm sure that happened there. And I think for a little while it may have served as kind of a makeshift courthouse, if I'm remembering right from my Newport ghost walk tour. Um, yeah, I'm sure it's seen a ton of different things. But one thing I could tell you that's cool is that Jackie Kennedy used to sit in this specific chair and watch people come in and out, and she liked going there. But
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah, they've got some ties there. This is 40 steps on Cliff Walk in Newport. Cliff Walk is a beautiful walking trail, and it's right along all of those mansions I mentioned earlier. And this is kind of at the beginning of it. It's 40 steps down to this very small, very slippery lookout onto the ocean. And it's just a gorgeous place. And this is also a pretty important location for Emma in the book. And I don't want to say why, but that's Trinity again with more pumpkins.
Yeah, that is pretty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to this part here. The sensitive. Where can people buy your book?
They can buy it. It is in one actual location of Barnes and Noble here, but it's also on the website on barnesandnoble.com. It recently was added to Target's website, and I was stoked. And then you can, of course, find it on Amazon. I am self-published, so that's where I started, on Amazon. And then I believe you can also find it on Walmart. So it's a bunch of places. I have all the links on my Instagram because it's mostly online, but uh, I'm happy that it's in that many places, even online.
So, how does being a ghost hunter in real life help you with writing horror and thrillers?
I think it helps paint it just in a more realistic light. There is the horror aspect, of course, but I like to make horror as relatable and real as possible in a lot, in a lot of the stories. Um, so it's helped me bring that kind of tone to the book, and that not everything is going to be glitz and glam. There are going to be some slower moments, and that's okay, because when those big moments happen, it's even more exciting. And I think it also just kind of gives me a more I don't know if empathetic is the right word, but empathetic view toward spirit, um,
Mm.
and just seeing them as people, because at the end of the day, that's what they were. They're just kind of, well, they're very much in a different place from us, but I like to kind of expand on that, but also keep truth to what we can experience, and not make it too outlandish, and focus on spirit as a person and their stories just as important as Emma's in the book.
Do
Everything.
you have other spirit realm characters in your writing projects? I know you're getting ready to launch other books too.
Yeah.
Um, do you also write about like angels, elementals, any other non-human entities?
I haven't touched on anything else yet. Um, ghosts are my go-to. Um, I've thought about maybe kind of dipping my feet into the demonic pool, but I don't know. I'm not super interested in that topic. Angels, I kind of, for me, angels are more so just guardian spirits. So
Mm-hmm.
that way, maybe guardian angels have played a role in my writing, but not yet. I would love to do a fun, like, Bigfoot book that's kind of horror, but also kind of, just a fun read. I think ghosts are probably going to be a huge part of my writing because that's what I love. And why not just write what you love? I mean, different stories, of course, but
Do you find when you write about the spiritual world, whether it be ghosts or whatever, do you find that it's helping you develop your skills as a psychic or even in your personal life in some way?
yeah. And I mean, I can only speak about what I've already written, and that's through the eyes of Emma Riley in the sensitive books. Um, and so far, it has definitely helped me, I think, at least a little bit, because Emma's main obstacle in life is anxiety, like myself, because that's what I know. So I'm going to write it. Um, and when I'm writing through Emma's eyes and people are telling her, hey, you need to kind of get it together, or, whatever it might be, I think that's kind of myself talking, and it helps me kind of drop that uh, guard or like the fog that anxiety can bring to you. And when I'm having my most kind of my clearest moments, when I think I'm maybe contacting something or feeling something, it's when I'm at my calmest. And I think we forget to take care of ourselves, and we forget how much stress that we deal with right now. I mean, work, job, family, all of it. It's just normal, but it's a lot. And
Oversharing is a big one.
yeah, you got to just step back sometimes. And Emma deals with a lot worse things than I do in her life, but she's even still learning to take a step back and focus on herself and what's around her, and how that is going to help more than focusing on what's going on in here. So
Is that kind of like a grounding, right?
yeah, definitely. Definitely.
I want to turn to the comments here. Rob Bullock says, I drive through Lock and Walnut Grove all the time. And then Kisan says, spirits are people too, not the demonic ones though.
Yeah.
And then Kristen Bullock says, JFK and Jackie were married in Newport.
They were. Yeah, that's my mom.
Oh.
But yes, they were. She's a very big Newport fan too. So she probably knows a lot more of the history than I do, and about the mansions. And yeah, they got married there. I can't remember the name of the church. She can probably drop it right now if she's still here. But yeah, it's very cool. It's a beautiful church too. It wasn't Trinity, but yeah.
Well, I love this idea that you're writing this Emma, and she's almost like growing with you in a sense.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Is
Yeah.
she going to be in other books that you
Yeah.
write?
Yeah. So The Sensitive is a series. I wasn't sure at first if I was going to make it a series, but I have completed almost the second installment, and that comes out in December. And it follows Emma just the same. And Emma's actually going from Newport all the way to West Coast. So yeah, again, reflecting my own life. I know I'm so self-centered, but now she's coming back home, um, trying to deal with something that has kind of imposed itself on her, and she's trying to look for answers, and she's trying to escape, and she's kind of a hot mess. And when you see someone and they don't have their life together, you would think, oh wow, they're down bad, they are immature, they're not dealing with it well at all. But through this huge just downward spiral that she deals with in the second book, she ends up growing through it all the same. So I think, yeah, in life there are ups and downs. And so when I'm going through a down moment, sometimes she does too, because that's what I'm writing, and it helps. So there's some moments in both books that are like, geez, like that's dark. Where'd you get that? But there's also the really calm, just small, peaceful moments, and I think that makes horror um, more of a I don't know if a richer subject would be the right term, but it, like Stephen King. he has those very human, just
Hmm.
not special moments and conversations, but
He's
those.
really good. He's really good at assigning a character like a specific nuance that they have, like someone that's clacking their teeth or something when they talk. He's really good at that. You know,
Yeah.
if you notice in all of his characters, all his movies, there's always a character that has like a peculiar thing about them.
Hmm.
I always found that really interesting. But also the idea of horror, it doesn't always have to be like, I don't know, is there murders in your book?
Yes.
There is. Okay.
Yes. In both. Um,
It doesn't always have to be like that though, right?
no. And my job during the day, I work at a police department, and so a lot of the horror I see is not what you would think of as like a horror book. It's sometimes it's just
Mhm.
seeing someone who is distraught. It. It's closer to something that could happen to you, and that's the scariest thing. A clown in a sewer gate is just as scary as being told that someone you love, died in an accident. So it doesn't always have to be that supernatural. It's I think horror is a fine balance between both. I don't know if that made sense, but
Are you going to continue in the horror genre, or do you think you'll branch out into other paranormal
I think
movies?
I will write more paranormal. Um, I think my horror will stay, at least to some degree, supernatural. But I think I'll always write horror and thriller. Not much of a romance girly, but there are aspects. So I
Right.
would like to challenge myself and dip my feet in different genres. Maybe some light action, not Indiana Jones, but uh, horror is, I don't know why. I'm maybe just twisted, but horror is where I find the most comfort. Maybe because it
Which
makes
is
my
so opposite of what it
yeah,
sounds like, you know?
yeah. No, it's weird. I know, but yeah, I think that's for the most part what I'll stick with, and I like that because it is such a huge genre, because anything that you can imagine, it can be horror. So yeah, I'm
Well,
excited.
Renee, we are just about at the bottom of the hour. Is there anything
Well,
else that you would like to add? Are you going to be at any Paracons, or do you have anything
um,
going on right now?
not right now. I've kind of taken a backseat. It's been really busy right now for me, just with life. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'll be able to do another event at Barnes and Noble this Halloween season, and that'll be here in Northern California. I'll be able to post about it on my Instagram. Um, but yeah, I'm hoping to do more events, at least in this area. So
Well, I'm
that's
really looking forward to seeing what you come up with. I think you have a really, really good future coming up with your writing.
Thank you. Of course, with writing, half the time is you feeling like trash and you're like a dumpster fire, but thank you. That means a lot. I really do hope anyone who does read it finds a little bit about themselves in it, and can connect. And that's what I hope to do. I hope to scare you, but I also hope to help you find something about yourself that you can reflect on. So that means a lot that you say that.
Well, Renee, thank you so much for taking the time to come on here and talk to me.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to meet you. I had a great time speaking with you. I can't believe it went by that fast.
I know it goes by fast, doesn't it?
It
It
does.
it's so funny how fast the hour goes. It's just gone, just like that.
Yeah,
Every
I
time.
mean, the lights dimmed. Like I look around and I'm like, oh no, I need to turn lights on. But yeah, I really enjoyed speaking with you. I was very nervous today, and then once you get going with the ghosts and stuff, it just kind of flies.
Yeah, once you start telling a story, it just goes by so fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for so much for coming on, and I will definitely have you back once you
Oh,
put out your second book.
well, thank you.
And
Yes.
I'll probably travel over to Preston Castle at some point because I need to go over there and investigate anyway.
Yeah, you got to let me know when you come this way. I'll
I
show you
will.
around.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So that's it, you guys. That's Renee. She's an author. You can find her on Barnes and Noble. Well, in her area, you can. If you want to find her on Instagram. Her name is Renee Richardson, and her book is The Sensitive. You can buy it on Amazon. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained, the mystical, and otherworldly, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107 FM, New Orleans. Thank you guys for listening. And I do want to just say one more thing. I know it seemed like I've been talking a lot tonight. On October 5th, that's this Saturday, I will be at the Rhode Island Roadhouse Paracon located at the old haunted YMCA building to talk about my book, Dancing with Demons. I'm actually giving a presentation. I think it is, I want to say 11 o'clock. I'm right after Michelle LeBaron, which you need to go see her too. She's great. I just love her. She's probably going to showcase a lot of EVPs that she gets because she gets millions of them. She is the ghost magnet. Rick Hayes is going to be there. Just so many people are going to be there. We're going to have a great time. We're going to do some ghost hunting. I will have some soap that I've made. I'm bringing that up. I also have some books for sale, and I'm going to put out the new magazine, Eerie Expeditions. So lots going on. I think they have 120 vendors at this thing. So you can probably spend all day just wandering through the vendor hall alone. So bring some cash. There's going to be a lot of things to see and buy. Tickets can still be purchased from the website. I think at some point they're going to probably shut that down, but from my understanding, they'll be sold at the door. I think they're like $5, guys. So if you're in the area, come out. I'm going to be there all day. And I really look forward to seeing you guys. I have one more thing before I go. I know I'm cutting it close here. I need some help, and I'm throwing this out there. I need a nice little intro for this podcast. It's a radio show. There's a lot of listeners on here from week to week. I think I'm up to 333,000 viewers from week to week. That's a lot, guys. So here's the deal. I kind of want to do a contest just to get some ideas. I'm really not sure what to put for an intro for this. So I am going to run a little contest about your best ideas. So if you have an idea of what you think it should be, please email me, info@clthomas.org, and you will win a full subscription to Eerie Expeditions magazine. That's 6 issues. It comes out every other month. So again, that email address is info@clthomas.com. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. And also, if you have any comments about the stories above about premonitions and dreams and how the spirit world can help you in your everyday life, please comment below. Thank you for listening, and until next time.